Am I the asshole for getting my eldest daughter a kitten to reward her sacrifices for her nonverbal autistic sister, despite my wife's overwhelming frustration? My eldest NT daughter, 7F, has had to make so many sacrifices for her sister with nonverbal autism, 5F. More sacrifices than any child should have to make. She has unintentionally been put on the back burner ever since her younger sister was born. It is clearly taking a toll on her, and I felt really bad. The poor child cannot even have playdates unless I'm there because my wife cannot manage another child alone on top of our two because our daughter with autism needs constant supervision, can be aggressive and is very prone to meltdowns. She cannot even go to friends' houses unless I'm there to help unless the other parent can drive her and bring her back. Because our daughter with autism is too difficult to handle in cars without another adult there. She has also been subject to aggressive behaviors from her sister and has been always expected to let her sister have the first turn, the biggest piece and the winning ticket so to speak. She also had her toys frequently destroyed by her sister. I partly blame myself for this and I'm trying to do better by her. She has been dying for a kitten ever since she could speak, but my wife kept saying no because she couldn't handle any more work as our autistic daughter requires so much care. I see the longing look on my daughter's eyes whenever there's a kitten on the television, in a magazine, etc. I've tried to get easy pets like a betta fish so my wife wouldn't be overwhelmed, but she still wants a kitten. My wife is a Sam and I work long hours. I thought my daughter has had it rough these past 5 years and for once deserved a little joy in her life, so I decided against my wife's wishes to get her a kitten. The joy on her face ever since having her new kitten brought tears to my eyes, and I'm not a crier. My wife is furious with me and has demanded that I return the kitten. Our daughter cried so much over hearing this I have usually acquiesced to her, but this time I put my foot down and said, absolutely not. I understand she's overwhelmed, but our daughter deserves a little bit of joy in her life for once, and as she gets older, she will be able to handle the kitten more. Our daughter is a person, and not just supposed to be a decorative artifact in her sister's story. I understand she's the one who's home and has to help take care of it much of the time, but it will not be a kitten forever, and it will grow into a more independent cat. At least our daughter was asking for a kitten rather than a puppy, which is a lot more work. I've seen a lot of posts here about adult children of disabled siblings going no contact with their parents due to emotional neglect, and I am trying to prevent that from happening. Update. I am the OP here. The other account got suspended, that's why I can't update from original account. My wife and I are now separated and more likely than not getting a divorce. I have tried everything and my wife has refused all suggestions. She refuses respite care because daughter with autism doesn't like strangers. Said the same thing when I offered to hire a pet sitter for the kitten when I'm not home to help. I spoke to an old acquaintance of mine from college who is now a child psychologist because I was at my wit's end. He said, I'm going to be very candid with you. Children with high needs autism such as yours will only get bigger, stronger, and worse. Yes, she may currently be helped by ABA therapy and such. But all that helps training will go out the window once she hits puberty. And in every single case their siblings have ended up with psychological issues. Depression, anxiety, and CPTSD, and often for low or no contact with parents upon adulthood. And telling your child that I'm doing the best I can, and don't take it personal, will not reduce the harmful impact on their mental and emotional health. My advice: get her into a group home ASAP. I'm not saying forget about her or don't be in her life. I'm saying that is where they all end up eventually, and you'll be doing no one any favors by waiting until she's too large and strong for you and your wife to manage. I have not seen one case of behavior improving for the long term until they ended up in a group home. I'm sorry to have to be so grim, but I couldn't bring myself to lie to you. It's no one's fault, it's the nature of high needs, low functioning autism. All the love in the world won't fix it. I thanked him for his honesty. I discussed it with my wife, including the group home. She'll have none of it. A minute later I heard a tumble and 2 loud cries. My older daughter is at the bottom of the steps and the younger one is at the top. She cried, she pushed me. All her mother could say was, if you had picked up your toys like I told you to, this wouldn't have happened. She stepped on your toy and got upset, that's why she pushed you. This was the final straw for me. I said, for the love of God. What's wrong with you? She's 7 years old. Neither of us can handle her and you expect a 7-year-old too? She yelled at me to get out. I told her, way ahead of you, I want a divorce and I'm taking my oldest daughter and Kitten with me. I took my daughter to the hospital to get her checked out for internal injuries. She has a few scrapes but is otherwise okay. Physically at least. Wife never called to ask if she was okay. She and I are staying in a hotel, with a kitten, until I find an apartment. We've only been here 3 days and I already see such a difference in my daughter. She's not the shell of a child I once knew. She's happy, vibrant, calmer than I've ever seen her and hasn't cried once, while she used to cry 1 to 2x a day before. I do also plan to get her therapy ASAP, which her mother wouldn't let her do, claiming no time, but when I offered for her to do Zoom sessions with the therapist, she said no because she doesn't want the therapist judging her. And she absolutely adores her kitten. She stays with my parents while I'm working, and I plan to send more than ample child support, show alimony to my wife and other daughter and let them have the house. I did what I had to do for her well-being. The child psychologist I spoke with said, I'm the first parent he's seen who has advocated this much for the well child. And that broke my heart. Now to the next story. Story 2. Am I the asshole for buying my grandparents' dream house and not giving it to my sister who expected it? My 27F wife, 30F, and I recently closed on our dream house and it has the family torn. Years ago my grandparents owned the family home, but when they died unexpectedly with a lot of medical debt and expenses our family had to sell their house. It was heartbreaking and sad and I decided as a small child that one day I would buy the house back. I shared those dreams with my sister. I met my wife when I was 18 and she was 21. Her parents owned a small rental that they allowed her to live in rent-free, just paying for the expenses. She invited me to live with her a year into our relationship and we got married a year after that. I told her about my dreams of owning my grandparents' house and she fully supported me. We began putting large amounts of money back for a down payment, in the hopes that the house wouldn't go on the market before we could afford it. Because we didn't pay rent and both had good jobs for our ages, and the economy we lived in, we were able to put back a very, very large sum of money. My in-laws also offered us a sum of $75,000 for the down payment. And in total, we put back about $185,000. About 20 years after my grandparents passed away, their house finally went back on the market at a massive price. The house itself is huge with 6 bedrooms, a large lakefront estate, and several features including a pool and small guest house. We knew that this house would have a huge price tag and we skimped and budgeted for 9 years to afford my dream house. My sister was also house shopping at this time but with a much smaller budget. Her and her husband have children, student debt, and rented for the past several years, and were not able to put back money in the same way my wife and I were. When our grandparents' house went on the market, I sent the link to my sister and said that we were finally getting our grandparents' home back in the family. She was very excited and said as much, and that was that. My wife and I moved forward, visiting with the owners and real estate agents, having it inspected, and made an offer. They accepted and we were absolutely over the moon. Throughout this whole process my sister kept saying how excited she was to have the house back in the family and how nice it will be for her children to know this house and grow up in it like her and I did. Our grandparents' house was the location of every birthday, holiday, gathering and reunion, and my wife and I planned on making it that way again. Which was why what my sister said didn't raise any red flags. Weird that she'd phrase it that way but not concerning. We had a BBQ at my parents' house to celebrate the final closing of our house. During the dinner my MIL offered to kennel our dogs while we were in the stages of moving to keep things easier and them safe, and that was when my sister piped up. She asked why our dogs needed to be watched when the real issue was her kids. My wife asked what she meant and she said that her kids will need more supervision than our dogs and that she was confused as to why we'd be so busy that our dogs needed watching. I told her I was the one confused. I didn't know she was helping us move, and that if her kids couldn't reliably be left to their own devices then she absolutely did not need to help us pack. My sister proceeded to ask why my wife and I would be packing. I told her the obvious, we just closed in a house? For length reasons I'll leave out a lot of the back and forth, but here's the gist of it. My sister had it in her head that we were buying the house to either A. rent to own it out to her family, or B. transfer the title to her name and have her pay us back in time. Yes, that is literally what she was thinking. Despite us never discussing anything like that once. When I told her that was not happening my sister threw a fit. She was pissed because this was her dream too. And that it wasn't fair that only one of us could live it. That since she had children they deserved to grow up in the family home, and what did my wife and I even need all that space for? My wife told her that it isn't the family home anymore. It wasn't left in a will, we purchased it, and now it is our home. And we decide what we will do with it. My sister told my wife to shut up and that she had no say in this family discussion. I informed my sister that if she spoke to my wife that way again we would not be having any kind of contact with her anymore. That she doesn't get to assume we're giving her a house and then throw a hissy fit when she's put in her place. And we left. My in-laws spoke to us on the matter a few times but all told us we were in the right, and that my sister was very out of line. I assumed everyone would agree, but if they did, I wouldn't be on this thread. I got texts and voicemails from my parents saying that we were out of line threatening my sister. They told me they were disappointed in me for taking my sister's dream from her and that I don't have kids, so I can't understand her wanting to provide them with a good home and childhood like she had. That it's only fair we set up a way to give her the house, and that we could afford to find something else. Even my more distant relatives have said that it was cruel of us to take that from her. I'm honestly super shocked and taken aback. I've seen stories similar to this on Reddit, entitled "People Thinking They Should Get Their Relatives' Houses," but I never expected to live it. This feels surreal, and I hate that we're starting this new chapter out on such a sour note. Edit. Wow, this blew up in such a short amount of time. Thank you for your support, and if this continues to be interesting and not blow over, I'll definitely update. Yes, this unfortunately is a real situation. And in case anyone is curious. Yes, the house is big and expensive, but it's severely outdated. Which is why the size and features don't exactly match the price in today's housing market. Like, I don't think any owners after my grandparents renovated a single thing. Also, I am a woman, lol. Update. I can't read and respond to all of these comments, but thank you. I will continue to update, but since posting yesterday morning not much has happened. I will add a bit more of what's happened since the BBQ. I haven't responded to any messages my family have left. I honestly didn't think this was that big a deal, but after scrolling through the comments for a while with my wife, we're both taking this much more seriously. A security system isn't an option at this moment. The house needs too much work at this moment to have cameras and such set up. They'd be in the way if everything else was being done. We'd have to have them removed for several of the things we need done, and we don't even have internet access at the property at this moment. I will be scheduling meetings with some companies to start coming out and working on the property before we get to the cosmetics. However, we do have someone coming out to change the locks on Thursday. We won't be moving into the house for a bit since it needs so much work before we're comfortable. I've had a few people suggest the story is fake because the price of the house doesn't match the features. The house needs a lot of work. It hasn't been updated or worked on in years, and the price reflects that. Also, we are lucky to live in a state where property values haven't skyrocketed too bad. Edit 2. I've posted a full update. It's on a separate post that for some damn reason I can't link them together. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Info. How much did the house cost if you put down almost $200K as a down payment NTA? But your first mistake was sharing the listing with your sister. OP. The house was a little over $800K, but the down payment itself was only about $100K. The rest was used for closing costs, moving costs, and renovations updates. It had a seriously dangerous deck that looked like it had been done by the homeowners that needed to be completely torn down and redone. OP responds on getting a will in place regarding the house in case she and her wife passes on. That way her family cannot fight over the legal rights of the property. OP. Honestly, I never even thought of this. I've always assumed wills and trusts were enough, but this is a scary possibility. Thank you. And I will be strongly considering this. Update. For the goddamn life of me, I can't get my post to link, but I'm sure if you're reading this it's because you've already read my original post. If someone would link it in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for being so supportive and offering advice. To those who suggested getting a security system in place, we are going to do that, but the house is not in a place where a security system can be installed. For the time being, we're looking into getting some battery power trail cameras as suggested by one Redditor. I can't find your comment in the sea anymore, but you know who you are. We don't have to worry about internet access and they won't be in the way of renovations. We are restoring the house back to its original glory. Pre-carpeted bathrooms and mismatched wallpaper. Besides fixing broken shit and upgrading old appliances, we'll be having the floors redone, paint, wallpaper, new windows, and opening up some walls that shouldn't be there. For the next 2 weeks my wife and I will be meeting with people coming out to work on electricity, plumbing, and a few other things, and we have a consultation with a home security company. Along with cameras, we're looking to get alarms and door codes and set up an access gate around the property. One of those that needs either a passcode or to be let in by someone in the house. We've already made an appointment to have the locks changed and aren't concerned about my family trying to squat there. My in-laws have allowed us to park their camper trailer on the property while work is being done, not only for peace of mind but to avoid commuting back and forth multiple times daily. For the actual update. I was hesitant to post this update since it's so soon after my original post, but I guess enough has happened for it to be useful information. The events of the BBQ took place last week, but I only got around to writing it all out yesterday. I sent a message to my parents and siblings yesterday evening, asking to meet up to talk things through and try and figure out what's wrong and what exactly the hell is happening. Earlier today my wife and I met my parents and my brother's family at his house before my sister arrived. I let them know that if they tried to interrupt or control the conversation we would leave. I told them that I never once even suggested my sister would be allowed to rent out the house or buy it from us. That you didn't know where she got the idea from, and showed them the text strings where I first sent her the listing and every conversation where I updated her on the progress. My mom asked to see the rest of the conversations about the house and I told her there were none. She informed me that my sister told them all that we had made an agreement that my wife and I would purchase it, and then rent it out to my wife's family until they'd paid enough to buy it. That we would live in the guest house, and they'd get the main house. She told them that we had gone back on our deal, and had absolutely shattered her dreams of raising her kids in the house she grew up in. We gave our side and it wasn't difficult at all to convince my parents that we were telling the truth. With the lack of evidence on my sister's part and absolutely no legal documentation, my parents didn't even attempt to try and back up what she told them. My parents were very apologetic and let us know that they never would have said those things to us, had they known the truth, and that they supported us 100%. My brother was supportive of us as well, but he was never one of the people harassing us over this, so his reaction is less important. Around then my sister and her husband showed up. My BIL is a doormat and will give my sister whatever she wants, so I wasn't expecting much from him. I asked her to produce any of the necessary evidence to prove that I told her we'd rent the house out to her. That her lie was ill-conceived and that she better have a good explanation. She attempted to suggest that I had deleted the conversation, but when she couldn't produce said messages, either her story fell apart. She started crying, saying it wasn't fair that we got everything handed to us, and that we didn't need a house this big, and that we were rubbing our wealth in her face. So to my understanding, she thought she could trick everyone into bullying us into renting our house out to her? I guess? Like some kind of fucked-in-the-head Scooby-Doo villain? Instead of using ghosts to scare us away, she's using a fake rental agreement that she didn't even attempt to make look or sound legit. We let her know that she had a lot of apologizing to do before we'd consider having a relationship with her moving forward, and that she wouldn't be welcome in our home for a long time. At the moment, our relationship with my parents is rocky at best, for obvious reasons. They let us know that they're here to support us if we need moving assistance or help with renovations, but it'll take some good hard thinking to decide if we're okay with that. We will not be giving anyone in my family a spare key, but my wife's parents will receive one for emergencies. The house won't be in a state to host guests for a bit, so we are choosing to cross the "can my family be trusted at our home" bridge when we come to it. To answer some common questions I've noticed in the comments. My sister obviously has some screws loose, but my parents don't really coddle her. She's what you can consider the golden child, and the baby. But honestly, most of her antics up until this point were just one-upping achievements during our childhood or seeking more attention from our parents. She's dramatic, entitled, and a little selfish, but has never displayed this level of crazy before. Yes, we will get a security system, but not for a bit. No, my family will not be trusted with a key. Yes, I am a woman. I know it's crazy how two women can be married. LOL. My wife and I do not have kids and will not have them in the future. My sister has done some odd things, but nothing as absolutely absurd as this. We will be meeting with an estate planner to put everything into writing. We plan on leaving the property to my SIL and her kids, with my MIL as the executor of our estate for the time being. My sister and her family rent a small house in town. They aren't struggling per se, they each are college educated with good jobs, but children are expensive, and then adding in student debt and $2,000 a month in rent, and you aren't exactly living it up. Also, there's a surprising amount of people mad at my wife and I for being rich. We are not wealthy. My in-laws are comfortable and are generous enough to allow us to occupy their rental at no charge. They bought a new house decades ago and just didn't sell their previous one. So they allowed my wife to live there. The down payment was my wife's college fund from years ago. Her parents put money in it, but when she decided to go into a trade, they kept the money and saved it specifically for the purpose of a down payment. When we told them that the house was up for sale finally, they offered the college fund they had kept for her. We work good paying jobs, but were able to save so much because we didn't have to pay $2,000 a month for housing. We skimp and save, and we did damn well earn it. We lived below our means and spent years forgoing any kind of luxuries to afford something we wanted. So yeah, not as drama-filled as a lot of people were expecting or hoping. I don't see this as the end of it, not at all. But for the time being, my wife and I are focusing on dealing with our new house and not my sister. She's blocked on both our phones as of this morning, and I'm not sure when I plan on unblocking her. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Leaving it to your SIL is mad work. You're closer to your SIL than your sister? OP. The sister who attempted to trick, bully and harass her way into taking the house we just bought and turned my entire family against us? And my SIL is my wife's sister. So yes, she's just as close to us as my sister. Closer after the stunt my sister just pulled. Comment 2. And I would have gotten away with the house if not for those meddling lesbians. OP. Okay, this one got me. Comment 3. Your sister is delusional and has made up a narrative in her head that she is owed or entitled to certain privileges. Your parents are crazy for reinforcing that narrative to her. Good on you for taking your wife's side and not standing for disrespect. Comment 4. NTA. Do not ever give your parents or sister a spare key or the door code.